Ocasio-Cortez has no problem touting her free-for-all socialist agenda to liberal outlets. But when Ben Shapiro offered her $10,000 to debate, she accused him of catcalling and refused. So what's her excuse now that conservative women are challenging her to the debate? Let's ask them. We have Kaya Jones, sits on the National Diversity Coalition for Trump, along with Turning Point USA Communications Director Candace Owens, and the conservative millennial CRTV host Allie Beth Stuckey. All of you have challenged her to a debate. I've been reading all of your tweets. She has not, I don't think, responded. I want to go around the square here and ask. And Candace, I'll start with you, because you were offering her $100,000 to a charity of her choice, thanks to people who have contributed to Turning Point USA. Did you ever hear from her?
I did not hear from her, and this is not the first time that she's declined to debate me. She ignored a TV station which came forward and said that they would actually sponsor a conversation between the two of us. And I think that this indicates that she doesn't understand the platform upon which she stands for. It would make sense for her to want to come forward and defend her ideas, but of course, her ideas do not make sense beyond on the paper, the utopian concepts that she preaches. So it's unfortunate, but I'm not surprised whatsoever.
Yeah, she put herself in this ring. I thought maybe she's young, maybe she's not ready for a debate, but she did run for office and she was elected, so we need to hear her thoughts. Kaya, I know you asked her to debate her. You put on Twitter, can I please debate you? Did you ever hear from her?
Not a penny, not a word. And, you know, I want her to debate at Politicon. You know, Politicon is going to be an open platform, very non-biased. So I was hoping that she would have responded, but nothing.
Why do you think she didn't?
I think she's scared to debate. I think that's the thing. The socialistic platform of the regime that she's thinking to bring into the American platform is just, I don't think she knows what she really is going to debate about. I think she's confused even. You know, some of the things she has said, she's not even sure about Nancy Pelosi, which is part of her team.
Allie Beth, you did that mock video over and you were hit for it. Why don't you think she's responding to you?
Exactly. Well, first of all, let's make something clear. She didn't deny Ben Shapiro's offer to debate based on sexism. She did it based on fear. And the ironic thing is that when I released that satirical interview just a couple weeks ago, she responded by accusing Republicans of being scared of her. Well, considering that she has ignored or denied all requests from conservative men and women to have a conversation about the pros and cons of socialism, I would say that it's not us that is scared of her. It is she that is scared of us.
That's interesting, because Nancy Pelosi said that Republicans were scared of her, too, in that interview on NBC. All right, let's look at this poll. This is a Gallup poll that Democrats view socialism more positively than they do capitalism. Unbelievable. Look at those numbers. 57% of the Democrats that were polled, they said they liked socialism. 47% said they liked capitalism. Those numbers have changed. In 2016, more Dems liked the idea of capitalism than socialism. It's changed by 9 points. Why this change? Is it because of people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? I'll start with you, Candace.
I actually think it's because of the Democrats and their aggressive rhetoric in response to Trump winning the presidential election. They're going to have to contend with this. The more moderate Democrats, which I think is what Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters actually are, have been using aggressive rhetoric, accusing everybody of sexism and of racism. And what has been born of this aggressive rhetoric is this extreme left platform which wants to create a utopian society, society which believes that money can grow on trees, which of course we know it can't. Socialism has killed 100 million people in the last 100 years.
Yeah, do they not know what it's like to live in obviously they don't know what it's like to live in a socialist country, but we've had so many guests on, Kaya, that have told us what it's like, that these dictators kill their relatives. Do they just not know the correct definition? You have Paul Krugman in New York Times. He wrote this on Twitter. A funny thing happens when you demonize universal health care, nutritional aid, and unemployment benefits as socialism. Lots of people decide socialism is okay. Why do they think socialism is okay?
I think they think it's okay because they look at Canada and they see it works for there. You know, Canada has GST, PST tax. This is how they can fund all of their money growing on trees ideas, but it's not free. With every dime you spend in Canada, you're actually paying for all of those things. Lest we forget, these ideas of socialism is very anti what the foundation of America is about, and very anti the platform that President Trump ran on. Their sole goal is to get rid of our military, get rid of our police, and they're feeding rhetoric to the American people, fueling an internal war, which is very scary.
Allie Beth, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, you know, I think that Nancy Pelosi and Democratic leadership are unfortunately going to have to get on board with socialism. This is no longer the party of the working man as it used to be maybe a few decades ago. It's the party of free stuff, and they're going to have to get on that train or they're going to get voted out.
Okay, well, if Alexandria is watching, I invite her to come on Fox News and we'll have a debate. She can choose one of you or all three of you. Maybe we could get Bernie Sanders to come on with her, and then you'll
be a nightmare for them, but fun.
I want to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I want to start with a look back at something from a couple of months ago, and I think it sets the tone regarding her and her breadth of experience. Take a listen.
What people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, is just an increasing crisis of humanitarian condition. And that to me is just where I tend to come from on this issue.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
I think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing difficulty in access to their housing and homes.
Do you think you can explain that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd also just, I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
Okay, go ahead, Candace.
Look, that particular scene, I have to say, I find it to be quite funny. But I'm kind of in the camp now where I think we actually have to stop mocking her and start to really understand what's happening here. First and foremost, she's constantly presenting herself, even in that interview, as a little girl. She comes across like she's 16 years old. She is not. Because we keep calling her the youngest person in Congress, it allows her to play the part of victim, like she's some girl on the playground who keeps getting bullied. She is not. She's a 30-year-old adult woman who is talking about dangerous ideas. She's talking about socialism. She's talking about ideas that were once pushed by Stalin and Lenin. And we have to start talking about her position, because this is something that is actually extremely alarming in America. She's not being bullied because she's young. She's not being bullied because she's the youngest person in Congress. People are actually holding her to task because she knows absolutely nothing, and she's made it to Capitol Hill.
And, you know, the amazing part of it, Candace, is that she suggests that, you know, she's from the hood, when in truth she went to one of the most expensive schools in my county, one of the most expensive counties in the country, Westchester County, and I believe Boston University. But I want to move on from that to her saying something about in the 60-minute interview on taxes. Take a listen.
Once you get to like the tippy tops, on your $10 millionth dollar, sometimes you see tax rates as high as 60 or 70%. That doesn't mean all $10 million are taxed at an extremely high rate, but it means that as you climb up this ladder, you should be contributing more.
Go ahead, Candace.
Okay, so first and foremost, I'm going to point again to the way that she presents herself, the tippy top. I don't know why she's speaking like that. She's a 30-year-old adult woman, but she does not understand economics whatsoever. And unfortunately, a lot of these interviewers aren't hitting hard back at her and asking her to explain her positions. If she wants to tax 70%, you know, in terms of people's salaries, she should start with her own. She's making $174,000. I suggest that we take 70% of hers.
Well, you know, what's interesting is she suggested that during the shutdown, the partial shutdown, that the Congress people shouldn't take a salary, and of course she's taking hers, but I guess that doesn't matter. It's just hypocrisy.
Just a tippy top, Judge. Just a tippy top.
And I also want you to take a listen to this. I think it's very interesting. Another thing from the 60-minute interview, where she compares herself to Abe Franklin and Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
I think that it only has ever been radicals that have changed this country. Abraham Lincoln made the radical decision to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. Franklin Delano Roosevelt made the radical decision to embark on establishing programs like Social Security. That is radical.
Do you call yourself a radical?
Yeah, you know, if that's what radical means, call me a radical.
All right, and I meant Abe Lincoln, of course, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Go ahead, Candace. What do you think?
first and foremost, she should know that Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, and she's representing the opposite party. I think she knows absolutely nothing about American history, absolutely nothing about world history. Forget history. She doesn't even understand world current affairs. Otherwise, she wouldn't be pushing forth socialism. As we understand, it's completely made Venezuela an absolute mess, and those people are actually fleeing those countries, trying to come into our own. Again, this is a woman that has arrived into the spotlight, and I'm happy that in America you can do that if you work hard, but her policies are alarming, and she's extremely uneducated, and that is why she is constantly under attack by the media.
Well, but maybe not enough. It's just a question of putting her out there all the time. But what do you think Nancy Pelosi is going to do with her? I mean, she said some things that weren't so nice about Pelosi, and we see Rashida Tlaib, the one who called the president an MFer, which just blows my mind. She's now running for cover when the press comes after her. Do you think Ocasio-Cortez is someone who can be reined in by Nancy?
Oh, absolutely. Here's one thing you have to credit the left with. They never go against each other. They're like zombies. They're in lockstep. No matter what the other person does, they never go after each other and attack one another in the media. So they'll come together for the sake of trying to destroy Trump. They will be in lockstep, focused on trying to destroy Trump, trying to go after Republicans, and trying to go after the GOP. I think that that's what we're going to see here.
I think it's going to be a long 2 years. Anyway, Candace, it's great to see you. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Look at this girl, Ocasio-Cortez, or whatever she is. I mean, she's in a totally different universe. It's basically socialism wrapped in ignorance.
I think a perfect example of how special interests and the powerful have pitted white working class Americans against brown and black working class Americans is Reaganism in the 80s, when he started talking about welfare queens. He's painting this like really resentful vision of essentially black women who were doing nothing, that were sucks on our country.
Freshman Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez targeting her progressive ire at the President Reagan, suggesting the 40th president pushed racist policies. My next guest was a longtime aide to the president, both during and after his time in the White House, and he says Ocasio-Cortez does not have her facts straight. Mark Weinberg is also the author of Movie Nights with the Reagans. Mark, good evening to you.
Good evening.
What was your reaction when you heard the freshman member of Congress make those comments?
I was appalled and I was angry, and Reagan would have been angry too.
Why?
Because it isn't true. There couldn't be more untrue, and it took a lot to get Reagan angry, but this charge was one that would have made him so. He was raised from being a little boy to treat people equally and not to look at people on the basis of color. And for anyone to suggest otherwise is wrong, is dishonest, and is just not true.
She had quite a crowd there watching her deliver that interview on the stage, and a lot of people heard those words. What do you want to tell them about someone you came to know so well?
I did, and I talked to Craig Shirley, his biographer, who's written 4 books about this, and the two of us couldn't believe it, that this myth is still in existence. And I would want people to know that Ronald Reagan never looked at people on the basis of their skin color. He appointed the first African-American national security advisor in history. The first Hispanic in the cabinet was a Reagan appointee, and he didn't evaluate people on that way. And it just isn't fair to say so. It's an old, worn-out, false myth.
In fact, you said that he would have quite a reaction during his days in office when he was called a racist.
He was, and this is something that came up from time to time in articles that portrayed or suggested he was a racist, made him mad. And in private, he'd have some salty words about those stories, never in public, of course. But that would make him angry because it wasn't true, and he felt it in his heart. It was something that was just essential to his personality.
When you see what's happening in politics today and coming off a weekend where we saw the comments like that made, what do you think that we would hear the former president Ronald Reagan say about politics as we know them now?
Well, he would be very disappointed, and he would tell people to do their homework and check their facts.